There is a type of person who disappears completely. And today, you'll discover how a 16th century ninja who vanished into shadow, erased his own ego, and survived impossible missions, developed a philosophy that explains exactly why most people never escape the life they claim to hate. Have you ever noticed how some people simply leave? They leave the job that was killing them. They leave the city that was suffocating them. They leave the version of themselves that was failing them. No lengthy explanation, no dramatic announcement, no permission from anyone. They simply disappear from one life and reappear in another, while everyone else is waiting for the right moment, waiting for enough money, waiting for someone to tell them it's okay. These people are already gone. And you know what most people think? They were lucky. They had connections. They had nothing to lose. Their situation was different than mine. But what if I told you that the reason you're still here, still in the same place, still living the same year on repeat, isn't because your situation is impossible? What if the reason you haven't left is because you were never trained in the art of leaving? The ninja didn't ask for permission to disappear. He didn't wait for the right moment. He didn't announce his departure to his enemies. He mastered the science of vanishing, and then he vanished. And before the greatest ninja schools were destroyed, they wrote down the exact philosophy that made a man capable of leaving everything behind and surviving completely alone. They called it Kage no Michi, the path of shadow. And once you understand how it works, you'll finally understand why you're still here. And more importantly, how to stop being here. But there's a catch. This philosophy will require you to accept something most people refuse. That staying is a choice, and you have been choosing it every single day. Before I show you exactly how this works, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment on what you're still here doing that you know you should have left behind: a job, a city, a relationship, a version of yourself. This helps the channel reach more people, and I read every single one. Now, let's begin. Chapter 1. The Ghost Who Couldn't Vanish. The story I'm about to tell you happened to a man named Daniel, 31 years old, sharp, perceptive, deeply aware of his own potential, but completely unable to move. Every year for 5 years, Daniel would make the same declaration: "This is the last year I spend in this city, doing this job, living this life." And every year he would still be there. Same apartment, same office, same slow suffocation, dressed up as stability. He had reasons. Good ones, he told himself. The timing isn't right. I need more savings. My father is nearby. I don't know anyone there. What if it doesn't work out? The reasons were real. The problem was that the reasons were also infinite. Every time he solved one reason, another appeared. Save more money. Okay, how much is enough? Find a job first. Okay, but how do I find a job there from here? Build connections. Okay, but connections take years. The reasons weren't blocking him. The reasons were him. He was manufacturing reasons the way a factory manufactures products. Automatically, constantly, without stopping. The breaking point came at a friend's wedding. Daniel sat next to a man he'd met once, 3 years ago, at a conference. That man had been in the exact same situation. Same city, same career paralysis, same list of reasons. But he wasn't there anymore. He'd moved to Lisbon, started a small business, was building a life that looked completely different from everything he'd had. And when Daniel asked, "How did you finally do it?" the man's answer was simple. "I stopped waiting to not be scared. I just left, scared." That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He searched for every framework, every philosophy he could find about leaving, about change, about why humans stay long past the point of reason. And he found the ninja. Chapter 2. The Principle of Kage no Michi, the Path of Shadow. The shinobi of feudal Japan were not simply spies or assassins. They were philosophers of disappearance. Their entire existence depended on one skill: the ability to leave without leaving a trace, to enter a life, complete a mission, and vanish as if they had never been there at all. But what most people don't understand is that before the ninjas could vanish from a physical location, he had to vanish from himself. The greatest ninja manual, the Bansen Shukai, written in 1676, contains a section that has nothing to do with weapons or stealth techniques. It contains a philosophy of self-erasure. The shinobi who clings to his face, his name, his comfort, his past, cannot disappear. He carries himself like a weight. Every room he enters, his identity announces him. Every mission he takes, his attachments compromise him. To vanish, you must first release. The ninja masters called this the principle of Kage no Michi, the path of shadow. A shadow has no attachment to the object that creates it. When the object moves, the shadow moves. When the light changes, the shadow changes. The shadow does not negotiate. It does not grieve the wall it used to fall on. It simply falls where it falls. Most people live as objects, not shadows. They accumulate identity the way walls accumulate paint. Layer after layer after layer, until moving feels impossible, because moving means leaving behind everything you've spent years becoming. The ninja understood this, and he trained against it. Daniel read this and felt something crack open inside his chest. He'd been treating his life as a structure to be modified, not a posture to be abandoned. He kept trying to renovate the prison instead of unlocking the door. A sociologist who has been studying immobility and life transitions for 22 years explains, the primary predictor of life change is not resource availability. It is identity flexibility. People who remain stuck are not lacking opportunity. They are lacking a self-concept that permits departure. They have become so identified with their current life that leaving it feels like self-destruction. But Daniel discovered the path of shadow was only the beginning. Chapter 3. The Principle of Mushin, the Mind of No Mind. 4 weeks after discovering the ninja philosophy, Daniel confronted the real enemy. Not his circumstances, not his finances, not the logistics of leaving, his own mind's talent for catastrophe. Every time he moved toward action, his mind performed the same theater. What if you fail? What if you're alone? What if you leave and it's worse? What if you've been lying to yourself about what you want? What if you get there and realize the problem was always you? The questions were endless. And every question felt legitimate. Every question felt like it deserved a complete answer before action was permitted. He went back to the ninja texts and found the principle he'd missed, Mushin, the mind of no mind. The warrior who enters battle calculating every possibility has already lost. His mind is full, no room for response, no space for adaptation. The enemy who moves unpredictably paralyzes him because his calculation cannot keep pace with reality. The warrior who enters battle with a mind emptied of fear, of outcome, of self, responds to reality as it appears. Not as he imagined it would appear, He cannot be paralyzed because he has nothing to protect. He cannot be surprised because he expected nothing specific. The ninja trained Mushin not by eliminating thought, but by refusing to let thought become obstruction. A thought appears. The ninja observes it. The thought dissolves. Action continues. Daniel realized his thoughts weren't problems. They were weather. He'd been treating his anxious thoughts like structural engineers' reports, legitimate assessments that required complete answers before construction could begin. Mushin said something different. The weather doesn't need to be solved. You don't wait for every cloud to pass before you leave the house. You walk through the weather. So Daniel practiced. A fearful thought appeared. What if you fail? He observed it. He did not argue with it. He did not answer it. He let it pass like smoke and continued planning. What if you're alone? Observed, released. Continue. What if it's worse? Observed, released. Continue. After 3 weeks of this practice, his mind's catastrophe theater lost its power. Not because the thoughts stopped, but because he stopped attending the performance. A neuroscientist at Oxford, who has been studying anxiety and decision-making for 17 years, explains, anticipatory anxiety is not a prediction system. It is a pattern that fires in response to uncertainty, regardless of actual risk level. Subjects who engage with anxious thoughts and attempt to resolve them before acting show significantly higher rates of behavioral paralysis. Subjects who acknowledge the thought and act regardless show progressive desensitization. The anxiety does not stop. The relationship to it changes. But there was a deeper obstacle waiting. Chapter 4. The Principle of Gaman. Enduring what must be endured. 2 months into his preparation to leave, Daniel discovered the real cost of disappearing. Not financial cost, emotional cost. His father cried. His colleagues looked at him like he was abandoning them. His oldest friend said, "I thought you were happy here." And for one long night, Daniel almost reversed everything. Not because the plan was wrong, but because watching people he loved feel pain because of his choice felt unbearable. He returned to the ninja texts and found Gaman, enduring what must be endured. The shinobi was not a man without feeling. He was a man who had trained himself to carry feeling without being stopped by it. The ninja who cannot endure the pain of leaving cannot complete any mission requiring departure. He will always be called back by attachment, by guilt, by the weight of people who depend on his presence. He will remain visible, remain known, remain in place, because the cost of invisibility feels too high. But the text was precise about something crucial. Gaman is not suppression. The ninja who suppresses emotion carries it as a bomb. It detonates at the worst moment. Gaman is the capacity to feel completely and continue anyway, to grieve the leaving while leaving, to carry the guilt without being turned around by it, to hold the love for the people you're leaving without treating that love as a cage. Daniel understood this as the hardest principle, not because it required extraordinary discipline, but because it required him to stop using other people's pain as a reason to stay in a life that was slowly erasing him. He loved his father. He was still leaving. Both were true. He would miss his colleagues. He was still leaving. Both were true. He was afraid of hurting people. He was still leaving. All of it was true. A psychologist who has been studying guilt and life transitions for 15 years found guilt is the most common mechanism through which people justify life paralysis. Because guilt feels selfless, it passes as virtue. But choosing to remain in a life that does not fit you, to spare others the discomfort of your departure, is not selflessness. It is a transaction, your life in exchange for their temporary comfort. Most people making this trade do not realize what they are trading. Daniel carried this, and he continued anyway. Chapter 5. The Principle of Shinobi no Mano. I endure. At the 3-month mark, Daniel found the final principle, and it was the simplest. The word shinobi, the word the ninja used to name themselves, is written with a character that means endure, survive, persist. The man who endures, the one who continues, not the one who wins every encounter, not the one who faces no opposition, not the one whose path is clear, the one who continues through opposition, through uncertainty, through the voices that say turn back, through the moments when everything uncertain feels more dangerous than everything familiar. The ninja's greatest weapon was not a blade. It was his refusal to stop, his complete commitment to the continuation of the mission regardless of conditions. Rain, opposition, exhaustion, fear, doubt. These were not reasons to abort. These were conditions to move through. Daniel had spent 5 years waiting for conditions to improve. He'd been waiting for the path to clear before he walked it. Shinobi no Mano said something ancient and obvious and completely different. The path doesn't clear before you walk it. The path clears as you walk it. He left 4 months after finding the ninja philosophy. Not when he had all the answers. Not when the fear was gone. Not when everyone understood. He left scared, unclear, imperfectly prepared, and completely committed. 18 months later, he was unrecognizable. Not because the new city was perfect. Not because everything had worked out exactly as planned. But because he had become someone who left. And becoming someone who leaves changes everything about how you move through the world. Chapter 6. The truth about why you're still here. Here is what Daniel learned that most people never do. You are not still here because you cannot leave. You are still here because you have trained yourself to stay. Every time you identified a reason to wait, you trained waiting. Every time you let fear answer for you, you trained fear to speak first. Every time you postponed departure until conditions improved, you taught yourself that your leaving is conditional, that it requires permission from circumstances you cannot control. The ninja trained the opposite. He trained departure as a reflex. He trained impermanence as a value. He trained disappearance as a skill, and the result was not a man without roots. The result was a man whose roots were inside him, not under him. He carried his identity, not his address. His value was not tied to his location, his title, his history, or anyone's memory of who he used to be. He could leave because he'd already mastered the only thing that mattered, himself. This is the truth. Staying is a skill. Leaving is a skill. You have been practicing one of them every day, and the one you practice is the one you become. Chapter 7. The Path Forward. Here is how to begin training Kage no Michi, the Path of Shadow. Month 1. Practice identity release. Each week, deliberately give up something you use to define yourself. A habit, a social role, an opinion you perform for others. Not because these things are bad, because you are practicing the experience of existing without them. The shadow must practice detachment from the object before it can move freely. Month 2. Practice mushin in small decisions. When anxious thoughts appear about any choice, observe them without answering them. Make the small decision anyway. Not the big one yet. Order the food you're unsure about. Take the route you don't know. Call the person you've been avoiding. Build the reflex of acting while uncertain, because that reflex is the only one that will carry you when the stakes are high. Month 3. Identify your gaman test. What is the emotional cost of leaving that you are most afraid to pay? Name it precisely. Write it down. Practice sitting with the feeling of paying that cost. Not actually paying it yet, but removing its power to stop you by making it familiar. The ninja did not encounter death for the first time on the mission. He had already met it thousands of times in meditation. Month 4. Apply Seigen to your departure. What escape routes are you maintaining that allow you to stay? The lease you keep renewing without examination. The job application you draft and never submit. The conversation you keep not having. Close one escape route. Not all of them. 1. Watch how your mind responds when one door closes. Watch how clearly the remaining door comes into focus. Months 5 and 6. Shinobi no Mono. Begin moving, not arriving. Moving. One concrete action per day that belongs to the life you're leaving toward, not the one you're staying in. A single email sent. A single item researched. A single conversation had. The ninja doesn't sprint to the target. He moves through darkness, continuously, without stopping. Continuous small movement defeats stillness every time. After 6 months of this training, you will not be the same person who read the first line of this video. Not because your circumstances will have transformed completely, but because you will have become someone who moves. And someone who moves cannot be held in place by reasons that only work on someone who is standing still. Chapter 8. The Complete Transformation. The ninja did not vanish because conditions were perfect. He vanished because he had trained vanishing until it was the most natural thing he could do. Daniel did not leave because his fear disappeared. He left because he had trained movement until staying became the harder option. This is the final truth of Kage no Michi. You are not waiting for your life to change. Your life is waiting for you to move. The shadow does not wait for permission from the object. It moves when the light moves. And the light has been moving for years. You are still here because you have been standing still. And you have been standing still because somewhere, in the accumulation of reasons and fears and guilts and attachments, you forgot that stillness is not safety. It is just a slower kind of disappearing. The ninja chose how he disappeared. He chose the mission, the direction, the destination. He controlled the vanishing. You are disappearing too. Every year you stay in the wrong place. A version of you that could have existed somewhere else quietly stops being possible. You are disappearing into the life you didn't choose, 1 year at a time. Kage no Michi offers you the alternative. Disappear on purpose. Vanish towards something. Move through your fear, the way the shinobi moved through darkness. Not without fear, through it. If this video changed something in the way you see your own stillness, subscribe and activate the bell. And tell me in the comments, what is the one escape route you are going to close this week? Not next month. This week. One door. Name it publicly. Because the ninja's first act of vanishing was always the same. He committed to the mission before he felt ready. He announced his departure to himself before he announced it to anyone else. You are still here, but you don't have to stay. The path of shadow begins now.